You are watching the latest edition of the Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. It is well known that the reason that people do not commit to an exercise program is a lack of time. Today, we have a well-respected, well-known doctor that says you don't need much time. In fact, he states as little as 12 minutes a week will give you more fat burning and a healthier heart than 1 hour of cardio a day. If you're trying to lose weight or get healthy, my advice, stick around for the latest edition of the Wellness Hour.
The Wellness Hour. An in-depth discussion with today's top physicians and medical leaders. And now, your host, Randy Alvarez.
You are watching the latest edition of the Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. My first guest is Dr. Mark J. Smith. Dr. Smith is one of this country's top experts on high-intensity interval training. He lectures to medical doctors and other health practitioners nationwide on the health benefits of what he calls burst training. I've seen him speak on this topic at one of his lectures, and I can assure you he is one of the most dynamic speakers you will ever see. Dr. Smith, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Randy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, before we get into today's topic, because a lot of what we're going to talk about today, I guess, is controversial to some people.
Yes.
I mean, the whole idea of less exercise can get more benefits than long exercise. Or
it's still controversial, especially with the majority of the public. But it's improving in terms of when I was giving this message 10 years ago, people looked at me as though I was from Mars. Okay, now that's not the case, particularly with a lot of the personal trainers and the healthcare professionals. But for the general public, it's still very much against the grain in terms of what we're about to tell them.
Now, for people just tuning in, I should mention, I mean, you speak nationally at health conferences to sold-out audiences.
That's correct.
People want to hear what you have to say. First, though, let's talk about your background, your training. You have a PhD.
Yeah, my doctorate was from Colorado State University in heart disease. I actually got very much into the science behind the development of plaque, which causes the blockage of arteries and leads to heart attacks. So that was my PhD work. I had a master's in exercise physiology. So those two combined give me a nice grounding for the topic that we're talking about.
You say things like, in your lecture, I took some notes, that we're not designed to exercise in the long duration.
That's correct.
Tell me about that.
Well, I think if one were to look back at when we were, primitive hunter-gatherers, we wouldn't go putting our Nike shoes on and jog around through the forest trying to find animals. We'd scare them away, for starters. Okay. So we would do lots of meandering, walking. Tribes would move around. So I'm going to always encourage people to walk. I'm not knocking that. That's a great thing to do. Always try and increase your activity level. But throughout a day, they would have ballistic activity. When you're trying to, catch an animal, you're not going to be jogging around trying to get it. There'll be ballistic activity, sprint activity. And more to the point, to not become the food of those animals, you're not going to jog out of the way. You better sprint out of the way, get to a tree, get out of trouble. So from a survival perspective, we're far more of a sprinter than we are a marathon runner. And biochemically, we're that way too. I mean, it's amazing what the human body can do to train, like marathon runners, how they can train themselves to be very good at that. But if we look at biochemistry, we would be more like a duck. Now, ducks are great endurance athletes. Okay, we're not. We're more of a sprint athlete.
Now, you make the comparison with who do you want to look like,
right.
A sprinter or a distance runner?
Well, I put a slide up in my lectures, and I have a picture of a sprinter and a marathon runner. And what are people trying to do when they go to the gym? They want to look toned, buff.
Right, ripped.
Right, ripped. Okay, and just all the people have to do is imagine looking at the Olympic Games or track and field and look at the sprinters, look at the marathon runners. The marathon runners are often very thin, quite gaunt looking very often. And that's an interesting point. Their faces are quite thin.
So how can you, though, believe that 4 minutes of intense exercise at a time, I guess 3 days a week, is that your guideline?
Correct, yeah. That's a minimum guideline we recommend.
Can burn more calories than 1 hour of cardio a day?
Well, it's easy.
You believe that?
I believe it and I know it.
So if somebody's trying to lose weight, you say this is the way,
Absolutely.
Not the other way?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Simply, we've measured it. So you can measure that. But again, I like to talk about analogies.
Okay.
We want to be like a Ferrari going down the highway. We don't want to be getting good gas mileage, okay? So I have a slide that I put up and I show the caloric expenditure of different activities. So if I'm sitting in a chair watching TV, everyone would appreciate that you're not going to get fit sitting down in a chair.
Okay.
So if I stand up, does it require more calories to stand than to sit?
Yes.
Yes. What about if I walk slowly? Yeah, a few more. But if you start to look at this graph I have where it's a very slow increment, we're very efficient at walking. Walking is really nothing more than a modified fall. You kind of move your center of gravity forward and you stop yourself from falling. We're very efficient at it. The reason that we actually expend calories when we gait or movement, when we propel our body in walking or running, the energy requirement is due to you raising your mass against gravity. So it's not until you start to run fast or even sprint that you're really having to get that center of mass against gravity in a significant manner. And the point I want to make is it's an exponential increase once you get to the running very fast or sprinting. So that's why you end up burning calories at about a 5-fold increase when you're sprinting. Okay? So when you actually measure it, the actual work output during that short period of time will be so much higher in terms of the rate of expenditure. But the key ingredient is what happens to your metabolism after the exercise.
Okay.
Okay, that's one of the key things. But the biggest thing is the research is out there. It's been measured. I've measured it myself in the laboratory. I've seen plenty of other research studies have done the same. And it's
So help me understand then how 20 minutes of, most people do, I've asked around, I do a little longer, but
Sure.
most people do 20 minutes of cardio, 3, 4, 5 times a week.
Right.
How is 4 minutes better? I mean, help me understand,
Sure.
why is it better and what's the science behind it?
Right.
What are the overall benefits? Why this is better?
A simple physiological principle is the body adapts to stress, period. So if you can appreciate running a minute vigorously is more stressful to the body than going for an hour jog, you'll start to appreciate a little bit more intuitively that this type of training will have better benefits for you. But let's talk about some science.
In terms of weight loss as well?
Absolutely.
I mean, you'll burn more calories?
Absolutely. Well, let's
in
get
1
back-
minute, okay.
Have you ever seen an overweight sprinter?
No.
Okay. All right. The training volume of a sprinter relative to these endurance athletes is about a 20th. I mean, it's such a smaller volume, but it's higher quality. Remember, the Ferrari versus kind of trying to get a diesel car going down the highway with good mileage. Okay. So we want quality, not quantity. Okay. But let's talk some science.
Yeah.
Because, we can talk analogies. Let's give it some hard facts. The first thing I think I always say when I talk science, in 1995, the Center for Disease Control and the American College of Sports Medicine came together. There was a big conference to kind of sift through all the research for one very important reason. The reason is the previous guidelines weren't working. We were getting more overweight, we were having more heart attacks, everything was getting worse. And yet, so what was happening is whether or not this long, slow stuff was the best way to do it, it also wasn't working. Okay? And one caveat I should say, I'm not saying that the research showing that long stuff, there are training effects from doing it, and it can work to a certain extent, but it's not the best way. Okay, so I do want to make that caveat. Now, in 1995, they came together, and they stated that accumulation of physical activity in intermittent short bouts is considered an appropriate approach to achieving the activity goal. That activity goal burning between 120 and 210 calories a day, which you can do in those sprints in 4 minutes in a day. You can do that very easily, and we've done that in the laboratory. Okay? When they made that statement, a lot of the research started to focus in on this interval training. So remember, they said in intermittent short bouts, they were giving the support behind this concept. Okay? Since that time, there's been a number of scientific studies that have looked at fat burning, cardiovascular training from what we call high intensity interval training or burst training.
Now let's move on to the machine. You say that that's the key to this whole approach to intense training.
It allows the average person, with the convenience of doing burst training, high intensity interval training, in the comfort of their home or the office. They don't have to go to the running track. They don't have to go to the stadium stairs. This allows them to do it in their own home. So it's very efficient.
You say it's much different than the other machines on the market.
Totally different. Yeah. First of all, the quality is second to none, but the biggest key thing is you can do burst training on it. You can't do burst training on it.
You just can't get the intensity,
speed.
the
Yes,
speed.
The speed and intensity, right.
Now, a friend of mine, world-class shape, showed him your machine online, anticipating this interview.
Okay.
I said, that would never do it for me.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay.
What's your response to that? You must hear that.
I hear it a lot. I mean, one of the things
Because
that,
somebody in world-class shape,
this is used in professional sports teams. I have Olympic athletes who've used this.
can they get tired though? Because I'm in pretty good shape. I can't imagine getting tired on that machine.
Can an Olympic athlete get tired running once around the track, which is 60 seconds, less than?
Yeah.
Of course they can. So it's a matter of, can this machine challenge them? Absolutely it can. In fact,
So this can challenge anyone.
anyone, absolutely. In fact, it actually gets harder the fitter you are. It gets harder the fitter you are, because the method of the unit and the form that we do on it is where it makes it very unique. We're able to get really high intensity without the impact on the joints, which is why this becomes a very effective tool for the average person. I can't take a 300-pound deconditioned individual and take them to the running track and start doing sprinting. Okay, that's probably not very practical. That's where the machine that was invented by Dr. Terords, who's a world-renowned biomechanist, became such an efficient tool to help people get into burst training.
So medical doctors are carrying this machine, health practitioners nationwide.
Correct, yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's one of them. When you said someone looked at it and said, that wouldn't do it for me. One of the things we do see, because a lot of people...
Because it looks simplistic, I got to tell you.
Well, which is a good thing, but what it does look like is a lot of the cheap mini steppers out there. This is not a mini stepper. This is used by professional sports teams as a very sophisticated piece of equipment. So you can't compare it to that. But unfortunately, when people look at just a picture, obviously that analogy will be made.
But what if somebody watching this sounds like it's very gimmicky, like he's just trying to sell machines. Well, but this is like almost your passion, your way of life. I mean, you believe this stuff.
I've been in this project now since 1995, and actually a little bit before that. But when I really jumped into it was 1995. So yeah, I'm very passionate about this, and I saw this as an opportunity when I saw the declining fitness levels. And the biggest reason that people don't commit to an exercise program is time. Well, here we have the science now supporting time is better if you do the sprint interval training. Takes less time, so there's one thing. Then we needed a convenient, effective way so that you didn't have to change, shower, go to a gym, go to a running track to get more people committing to an exercise program. So very passionate about it. I've seen the results, and it simply works. So in terms of people being skeptical, yeah, I've seen it, but I'm winning the battle.
So it's not an exaggeration if somebody said he's exaggerating about the results.
No, not at all.
We're going to take a quick break. We come back, we'll meet some of the people that have used this machine.
Okay.
You're watching The Wellness Hour, leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. We're here with Dr. Mark Smith. The next segment you don't want to miss. We'll be right back.
So one of the principles that I oftentimes speak to them about is the principle of the high-intensity interval training, burst training. This is something that I've found to be very effective with my own patients in helping not only with conditioning, cardio conditioning, getting in shape, but also with weight loss and weight training. It's not just for athletes. It's something that can be done in minutes a day, and it's cutting edge when it comes to exercise therapy. Right here you see one of the exerciser units in the clinic. We use it oftentimes for our weight loss and conditioning programs. Patients find it to be very effective part and a tool of their programs. Here we have it so that they can use it right here in the office and see a demonstration, and oftentimes they wind up taking one home with them.
I've been saying for years that high intensity training is the way to go. It's the best way to get in the best shape in the shortest amount of time. High burst, high intensity training, short periods of time like that, it trumps long, slow cardio every single time. I think the exerciser is really one of the most ingenious solutions to the problem of how to get this kind of high intensity workout in a short amount of time, in a short amount of space. It's well made, it works terrific. You get these amazing 60-second intervals. You can do it in 4 minutes a day. I've been promoting it for a long time. I really believe in it. I think it works great.
This exercise incorporates upper and lower body movement at the same time. By doing this, we maximize the amount of calories burned with minimal time investment. Doing this at high intensity is what separates the exerciser from most other steppers. This is a very dynamic exercise, again showing the versatility of the exerciser machine. By moving into the full plank position, we are now performing alternating one-arm push-ups. At the same time, maintaining a stationary pelvis, this exercise will challenge your core like never before. This is one of the most popular activities in the exerciser program. Maintaining a body bridge in stepping, we can now effectively isolate the glute and hamstring muscles. Training these muscles in an alternating stepping manner is a great way to shape, tone, and develop them effectively. This exercise shows the versatility of the exerciser machine. By kneeling down, we can actually mimic a swimming or surf pedal movement, which works all the muscles in the upper back. The versatility of exercises like this is what separates the exerciser from other steppers on the market.
Designs for Health is the nutritional supplement brand of choice, exclusively recommended by healthcare professionals.
As a physician, I insist on the science-first approach of Designs for Health. They have synergistic formulations with optimum quantities of therapeutic nutrients.
Designs for Health, the leader in professional brand nutritional supplements.
You're watching The Wellness Hour, leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. It's all about exercise today with Dr. Mark Smith. Okay, and for people just tuning in, you say 12 minutes, you give a person 12 minutes a week.
Yes.
On your machine.
Yes.
And you take another person 1 hour of exercise a day, aerobic exercise, and you'll get better results, better fat burning.
Absolutely.
What about, okay, hard to believe, and we've talked about the science. What about exercising at like 80%? Like you wear these heart rate monitors. We all know, and the experts are saying 80% of your maximum heart rate.
Well,
for fat burning. Do you disagree with that?
The experts say. Fat metabolism is very complex, first of all, and it's been way oversimplified by the fitness community. So if you actually talk to an exercise physiology at a university, they'll be agreeing with me on this. But here's one of the things that have really confused people when it comes to fat burning and this idea of a fat burning zone. There's absolutely no doubt that when you work in that fat burning zone, which is the lower intensity, which is why you see people out there walking when they could be doing a higher intensity, they've been told, and correctly, that at the lower intensity you utilize more of your calories from fat. Okay. But it's a percentage. Okay, so as we've described earlier, if the total number of calories that you burn, and when you walk you're very efficient, so an analogy might be you go for a walk, you burn 100 calories. And because it's low intensity in this zone that we talk about, you might be getting 75% of it from fat. So great. So 75% coming from fat, that's 75 fat calories. Okay? Well, if we increase the intensity, which requires more carbohydrates, okay, the fat percentage goes down. So let's say it goes down to 50. But because you're going at a much higher intensity, even in a shorter period of time, remember the Ferrari, okay, you're getting really bad gas mileage, which is what we want. You're burning 200 calories in half the time because it's much less efficient, okay? And you're only getting 50% from fat. So people have got this, you don't want to do that. Yes, you do, because 50% of 200 calories is 100 fat calories. So you actually end up burning more fat with the higher intensity. And that doesn't take into account the recovery component, which is huge when it comes to fat metabolism. Because
you're talking about recovery, the release of growth hormone, things like that.
I'm also talking about when you've just stopped the exercise. You're breathing heavy and your metabolism's raised. I mean, one myth out there to a certain extent is if you go to the gym in the morning, your metabolism's elevated for 6 to 8 hours. I'm sorry, but it's usually back down for the intensity that most people do within 30 minutes, maybe 60 if they've gone fairly intensely. The research is definitive on this. The key thing that elevates that metabolism is intensity, not duration.
Okay.
So that 1 minute, as hard as you can, will have a higher, what we call oxygen debt or oxygen consumption after the exercise. You finished exercising, but if we put you up to a respiratory apparatus and measure your oxygen consumption, we can see it's elevated relative to what a resting level would be. So that's an elevation.
You burn
of
more
metabolism.
fat, more calories.
Right. But what we want to compare is when you've done it after slow, moderate cardio versus the burst training. The short 60 seconds will have the greatest elevation of that elevated oxygen metabolism after you exercise than the long, slow stuff. And the beauty is you can get it every time you do a 60-second burst. So that's where a lot of this comes in, the accumulation of the caloric expenditure after the actual exercise. But here's a very important point. Okay. When you do the long, slow stuff during the actual activity, you'll actually, because that metabolism is focused a little bit on the fat burning, okay, when you stop, the body goes, I need to put back those fat stores. Okay, so it's putting back the fat and burning carbohydrate in the recovery. Guess what happens when you do the sprint training? Where you have, as a percentage, use more of the carbohydrate. The body wants to put back the glycogen or the carbohydrate and burn fat. So you become a fat burning machine in the period after the exercise, which goes on for longer. So like the sprinter, they become fat burning machines without having to do a lot of time.
So you're convinced the machine, the exerciser machine, is the best on the market?
If there were a better one, I'd probably be involved with that product.
Now we're bringing on Jarrett Phillips, co-owner of Exciser. Tell us about him.
Well, Jarrett was a personal trainer, a very successful personal trainer in the Dallas-Fort Worth region. And he called me up one day and was interested in the Exciser and the burst training. He had listened to, which you can also hear at the website, a lecture I did with a company called Designs for Health, and on the burst training, a little bit more in depth because we had an hour there. And it just made sense to him. And so he wanted to get more involved, and was selling a lot of exercises to his clients because just getting great results. It was working. They were losing weight. They were getting good cardiovascular conditioning. And to boot, they also didn't have to invest a lot of time. So much so that he's like, I got to get involved with this. And we actually, with some of his clients actually, who were some businessmen that wanted to take this to another level, basically got involved, and we formed a new company for the distribution of the product.
Okay, good. Jarrett, welcome to the program.
How are you doing, guys?
Now tell us about, now when you first, how'd you hear about Mark, by the way, Dr. Smith?
Well, I actually heard about Mark through one of the lectures I was going to for a continuing education course for some of my training certification, and I had heard, they mentioned the machine and things like that, and I checked out the website.
Now when you saw him speak, by the way, and I know I felt this way, I'm thinking, I've never heard this before in my life. Was that the first you've heard of, that 12 minutes a week is better than 1 hour a day?
Actually, Randy, I haven't. I actually become from where I came from with personal training, and because of my background in sports, I always believed in interval training. And so here's another guy preaching the same message, and I got just really excited.
Okay, now what about the machine itself? What are your thoughts on that? You said you went out and bought other machines and compared them.
Well, I'm going to make a bold statement here. Okay. I tested every mini stepper available on the market. I've used elliptical machines, I've used bikes, I've used all of them. Nothing can produce the wide a range of results that this machine can do. And I'll take to the Pepsi challenge with anybody that wants to.
You've taken people off the traditional 20 minutes or 30 minutes of cardio and put them to 1 minute, and you've seen them get stronger, burn more fat. I mean, you've seen that.
Absolutely. What I actually did is I took the model that Mark has shown with where you incorporate the dumbbell movements while you're stepping with the exerciser, as well as some of the other moves you do on the exerciser, and you can go anywhere from a 12-minute a week program to a 30 or 40-minute a week program based upon what you're looking for, and go from the weight training to the core training to the cardio, all in one type of mode. And that's where I saw this revolutionizing for the public.
Who needs to get this machine, by the way?
Anybody who wants to get fit and doesn't want to have to drive to the gym, doesn't want to have to spend $2,000 on a piece of equipment.
How does this compare, by the way? And I'll ask this to Dr. Smith as well. Total Gym. People love that machine.
Great product.
Bowflex. I mean, these are hot machines. I mean, you're competing against these in-home.
Well, actually, the Total Gym, this product also works very well in conjunction with a lot of those products. Classically, and I know the guys at Total Gym, and as I said, it's a great product, very, very good at strength training. Our product works very well with that because you can literally get off the Total Gym, you're doing some strength exercises, and then just do 60 seconds to get a huge cardiovascular benefit and metabolic effect, get back onto the Total Gym. The Total Gym now becomes even more challenging because of what you've just done on the exercise machine. So a lot of conditioning people out there are using the exercise machine in a sort of a studio gym type setting where they're doing maybe 3 or 4 minutes worth of the sprinting in amongst other exercises. In fact, Pilates is becoming a big thing for using the exerciser in Pilates studios. So now, instead of just a Pilates workout, it's now a total conditioning workout because they're getting the cardio component as well in a short period of time. The rest is devoted to the Pilates.
Hey, Mark, can I cut in and make a statement here? The ability to combine resistance training with this machine, like when you do an elliptical machine, you're not going to really build muscular strength. That was the component with this machine that baffled me. Was let me take example a testimony on my father, 57-year-old ex-athlete, ankle surgeries, knee surgeries, back surgeries, and he was literally atrophying. His muscles in his legs were deteriorating. We were doing all the traditional exercises, leg extensions with the machine and all that. When I put him on this machine alone, and after a 3 or 4 month period, the amount of improvement in his balance, his coordination, his strength. We were out working at a ranch carrying some feed. He steps over a fence, catches his foot on the fence, and does one-legged hops with a 50-pound bag of feed on his shoulders. And we went, wow, now that's results.
I'd like to add to that as well, Randy, because some of the studies I've done a lot with the elderly, and yeah, they're pleased that they've got they've lost some weight and they've improved some cardiovascular ability. But you know what really helps them is their mobility. One of the ladies really emphasizes that. That changes her function. She can now bend down, squat, and pick something up the floor. And the strength component of this machine, as Jarrett quite correctly points out there, is huge.
Jarrett, in your personal training practice, I guess when you had it, did you ever have people you took off that 20-minute, 30-minute, or hour of cardio a day, put them on this, and they got better results?
Absolutely, because one of the biggest things that this helped, it was compliance. When I tried to get them to do those 30, 40 an hour cardio, they'd get it in once a week. So that was the first thing I saw was the compliance. They did them. They actually got their exercise in.
Okay.
And I think two of the things that convinced me, you guys were talking about why would a doctor oppose this? The things that convinced me were two things Mark talked about. One was when he shows the graph of the actual, oxygen expenditure, and I could see charted that an hour or 2 hours after a 1 minute sprint, their metabolisms were still going. And then I saw the chart from the 20 minutes, and it was like 30 minutes later. Their metabolism wasn't working anymore. And so I saw that scientific hardcore data that you can't argue with. And then the second point was when he talked about the study that he did with women out in Palm Deserts. Mark, you may want to talk about that, but just to sum it up, they lost 13 inches off their body in 90 days, working out 12 minutes a week.
Let's talk about that.
You can't beat that.
Mm-hmm.
You work in Palm Desert.
Yes. Yeah. Currently I'm working out here at Mission Hills clinically, so I work as a clinician as well, doing weight loss, nutrition, diet, and really changing people's approach to cardiovascular conditioning.
We've gone out of our way on the Wellness Hour, and the program airs nationwide, not to endorse products, and this is not an endorsement on our part, but also not to even offer products for sale on the show. We've looked at this product, we've looked at the machine, looks great. But I've also talked to some of the people who have used this machine, some medical doctors, and they say this is right on the money. What Dr. Smith says is true. So what is your call to action here, by the way?
Well, I think that in terms of that statement there, hopefully the audience have also got more than just some information about a product. First and foremost, they should re-educate themselves, and they've learned that burst interval training is a more effective way than the long, slow cardio training. So if they're at the gym, for example, they can certainly increase the intensity with different products. There's different ways. I often tell people if they go to work that, there's a staircase in the building, don't take the elevator. You often hear take the stairs instead of taking the elevator. I say burst the stairs in 20-second bursts. So there's always ways of incorporating it. So that's first and foremost. So obviously I'd love them to get a unit because I believe it's the most effective way and most efficient way for them to do burst training.
So exerciser around the world. You think everybody's going to, you think this will take off?
That's why I started this, why I really got involved, because we need a solution. We really do. We've got an epidemic on our hands right now. We haven't seen what's going to happen with the children. The obesity epidemic right now with children. We're looking at the potential of the first generation dying before their parents. That's a really sad state of affairs, and we need to do something. Obviously the diet is a huge, huge component, but we've got to get them active. And this is a solution that can be very effective. So, yeah, I believe it's going to be, we like to say it's
as big as Total Gym, things like that?
Absolutely as big as Total Gym. Maybe even bigger.
This is the next bicycle. Everybody will have one of these.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I want to thank both of you guys for coming on the program.
Thanks for having us.
You've been watching The Wellness Hour, leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. If you would like to see Dr. Smith's lecture, the scientific lecture, you can visit our website at wellnesshour.com. For now, I wish you good health.
Thanks for watching The Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news with your host, Randy Alvarez, the authority on health issues.